Hi there and welcome back to Planet Property. I just got home from work, which is why I'm still wearing my suit jacket, but this feels very formal for a YouTube video, doesn't it? So bear with me. When did I become the person that wears an outfit that is entirely from Reiss? Even my t-shirt is from Reiss. This was my big girl suit that I treated myself to a couple of years ago when I got my first consultancy job. So one of the questions that my clients are asking me all of the time at the moment, and anyone who has any kind of interest in development in the UK should be asking, is what the hell is going on with the government and what that means for planning and planning policy. So I'm going to do my best to explain what has been happening, what is likely to happen in the next 18 months, and how it might impact you and your development. So first of all, what's actually going on? So for anyone who may not be completely up to speed, in the UK, we currently are living underneath a Conservative government, sometimes known as the Tories. They've been in power since 2010 now, though the first, was it 5 years? 4 years of that, they were a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. But essentially, there's been a Tory rule for the last 13 years in this country. And the Tories are traditionally very pro-economic growth, pro-business, anti-development in areas of greenbelt and preserving the countryside. So this has kind of been about in the creation of policy. Now, what has happened in the last couple of years, I'm sure anyone in the UK or anyone who has any interest in UK politics at all will have known that our state of government has been, quite frankly, embarrassing over the last few years. We are on our third Prime Minister in the space of 12 months. And each of those different Prime Ministers has a different idea of what they want to do about development, and house building is an integral part of the government and their political agenda. Particularly at the moment, it's one of the biggest issues in the UK actually, is the housing shortage. I would say, personally for me, and I know a lot of other people my age, it's either the number one biggest issue that they want their politicians to address, or it's second only to the climate emergency that we're living in. That's certainly, for me, that is the case. So policy around house building in particular, but also any matters of development, are significantly important to governments. And what is happening at the moment is there has just been a whole load of consultations on what is known as the National Planning Policy Framework and updates to the framework. Now, this only applies for England and Wales. I have done very little work in Scotland. They work under a different system. So anything that is stated in this video, we're talking purely about England and Wales policy here. So there's just been a round of consultations to updates to the NPPF. Planners speak almost entirely in acronyms, so I do apologise. I will put some either on screen or down below of what they mean when I start to lose myself in jargon and acronyms. And these updates include changes to the way developers pay for infrastructure on sites. There's essentially something called a developer tax, which is called the Community Infrastructure Levy. There's proposed changes to this. There are proposed changes to the wording of the NPPF, which talks about local authorities having to provide housing land supply requirements and whether or not they need to be meeting these targets that are normally set for them by central government, because each local authority is supposed to be delivering at least 5 years worth of land supply of housing. So many of them, particularly in the southeast where land is scarce, are not doing this. So a whole host of changes being proposed. In reality, they're very, very minor in nature, but what planners and planning lawyers and professionals in the industry love to do is we all get up in arms and go, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen because paragraph 157 of the NPPF has been slightly amended. And the reality is, it's not that substantial a change, but what it means is quite significant in terms of decision making. Now, I won't go into the full technical details of it because we'd be here forever, and if I'm honest, even I struggle a little bit sometimes understanding where we're at with it. But what I want to sort of segue this into is what this means going forward. Now, all of these changes have been talked about for 3 years since the publishing of something called the Housing White Paper back in 2020, and this has all been sort of a long time in the making, that there's going to be massive reforms to the system. There's going to be the ability to build more housing, allow more people, young people, to get on the housing ladder, all these kinds of things that are just never going to come to fruition. But in the UK, our legislative framework means that we have to have an election every 5 years, which means that the latest that a general election can be called is December 2024. So in just under 18 months' time, there is a very good chance we're going to have a new government, because general consensus is that everyone is fed up with the Tories. Everyone is sick of the 13 years of, first of all, there was austerity, then there was Brexit, and now we're in this absolute mess of a situation. It's an embarrassment, and I don't know. Certainly the circles I move in, it does seem like people are ready for change, but you never can tell. The Tories are always going to have very loyal voters somewhere in the country, so you can't guarantee it, but it does feel like it is very likely that in 18 months' time we will have a different government. And with a different government comes different priorities when it comes to building, development, house building, taxation on development, etc. So it feels like in the industry, people are waiting for that. It feels like people are waiting for this change of government to bring things to fruition. It feels like people are waiting for better economic circumstances. It certainly feels like councils are waiting in terms of decision making on larger strategic projects and strategic sites that they might be bringing forward. So what does this mean for house builders and developers? Essentially, if you can, I would sit on your land for the next 18 months. Obviously circumstances apply, but the reality is, unless you're bringing a site forward that has been allocated and has already been consented, you're not going to get planning permission in the next 18 months, certainly in some specific parts of the country and in large parts of where I specialise in my areas of work. It's not to say it's not going to happen. Still need to keep building houses. There will still be planning applications approved every single day. But the general consensus is, if you're sitting on a large piece of land that you might want to bring forward, I'd continue to sit on it if you can. As I say, this is all very sort of jargon based, what I'm telling you right now. I can do another video where I go into what the allocation of sites means, because it's actually an incredibly important part of the planning process, certainly for developers in terms of managing to bank land values. And everyone talks about how evil developers are always land banking and sitting on land. There's so many more nuances to it than that, and whilst obviously my job is to work on behalf of developers and my clients are these people, I don't think it's biased when I say that developers get an unfairly bad reputation in the press. Ultimately, these are the people that are building out the houses, the places of employment that we need, the schools, the hospitals, the police station, or everything. These are the people that build the country that we live in. So I do think that developers do get a particularly bad rep, but I can also see where it comes from. So I am not in the position to give any site-specific advice here. I do sometimes get people questioning me on either on Instagram or in the comment section here, asking about site-specific advice. What I will say is I do now have a Fiverr account, so I'm going to leave the link to it down below. So if anyone wants me to have a look at any specific sites, give it a glance over, give you a little bit of high-level strategic advice about what I think the land could be worth or could do in the future, then go and have a look at the link down below and I will come back to you on some more site-specific advice. but my general consensus of where we're at in the world of development at the moment is things are moving very, very slowly. Planning has never taken this long in the entire time I've worked in it, and there's never been such a low mood around development and around planning, and particularly around the politics of planning, because planning in the UK is an inherently political area, career, all of it. It's so political. My brother once described planning as the perfect mix of politics and legislation, which makes it sound incredibly dull, but I think it's fascinating when those two collide. So yeah, if anyone wants any more sort of in-depth knowledge on specific areas of the consultation strategy, again, sort of like send me a message down below through my Fiverr account, and I can give you a full debrief about it. But also let me know if you would like a video sort of debusting some of the jargon that I use and going more into specific topics such as housing land supplies, site allocations, local plan reviews, what the NPPF actually does. Please let me know, because these are sort of very standard parts of my everyday life, and I often forget that not everyone else spends their day thinking about the changes to the NPPF and changes to infrastructure levy and developer taxation. I have very much sort of found myself a very, very specific niche in what I do, and a lot of people don't really understand it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I didn't just babble on too quickly about things that no one really particularly cares about. But like I say, feel free to get in touch with me anytime, and I will see you in my next video.